The federal judge stood in the witness box, his mask finally cracking. That child is mine, my property, my heir. $500,000. I built my entire life around that money. The bailiffs moved toward him. He fought, screaming, "She is my property, mine." But this story did not start in a courtroom. It started in a blizzard, with a woman and child dying in the snow, and a rancher who kept his fire burning for all the wrong reasons, until the night they knocked on his door. Garrett Stone kicked open the barn door with a rifle in one hand and found the storm had brought him something he never expected. Two figures, one woman, one child, both dying. The woman was barefoot in 3 feet of snow. Blood matted her dark hair on the left side, freezing as it ran. Her dress was torn at the shoulder. Her lips had gone from blue to white. She was dragging something behind her, and when Garrett stepped closer, he saw it was a child. 6 years old, maybe 7. The girl's eyes were open, but unseeing, her small body limp in the snow. The woman looked up. Her eyes locked onto his. Brown eyes almost black in the failing light. Eyes that had seen things no person should see. She grabbed his coat with fingers so frozen they cracked when they closed. "He is coming," she said. Each word cost her. "Federal judge. My husband. He will kill us both." Then she collapsed. The child underneath her opened her eyes and started screaming. If you believe broken people deserve second chances, stay with this story to the end, because what happened next would change 3 lives forever, and the fight that was coming would shake Montana territory to its foundations. Now let us begin. The child would not stop screaming. High-pitched animal, the sound of something that had learned the world, only brings pain. Garrett dropped the rifle against the barn wall and pulled the woman off the girl. Dead weight. Cold rolling off her skin like fog off a river in winter. He got the child free, and she scrambled backward across the snow, hit the porch railing, and curled into a ball with her arms over her head. "Don't touch me! Don't touch me! Don't touch me!" Same words over and over, like a prayer she had memorized, like words that had saved her before, or at least delayed the inevitable. Garrett left her there. The woman first. The woman was dying. He could see that with the practiced eye of a man who had watched plenty of people die. At Gettysburg, at Antietam, in a fever-struck ranch house 6 winters ago. He picked her up and carried her inside the ranch house. She weighed nothing. Bones and frozen skin and blood. So much blood. He laid her on the floor beside the hearth where the heat was strongest. The fire had been burning for 6 years without stopping. Every night, every day. Garrett could not sleep in the dark anymore, so he kept the fire fed. It was the only living thing in this house besides himself. He pressed 2 fingers to her throat. Heartbeat. Weak. Skipping beats like a stone, skipping across water, each skip a little longer than the last. He stripped off his coat and covered her. Then he went back for the girl. She was still on the porch, still curled up, but the screaming had stopped. Now she was just shaking, silent and violent, her whole body jerking like something was trying to break out of her from the inside. "I am bringing you inside," Garrett said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. 6 years of barely talking had made it that way. "You can fight me if you want, but I am bringing you into." She did not fight. She went rigid when he picked her up. Every muscle locked, her jaw clenched so tight he could hear her teeth grinding. But she did not fight. Maybe she had learned that fighting only made things worse. He carried her to the hearth and set her down next to her mother. The girl immediately pressed herself against the woman's side and pulled the coat over both of them. Like if she got close enough, small enough, maybe the world would forget she existed. Garrett built the fire up until the hearth roared. Heat pushed against the walls, pushed against the cold, pushed against the 6 years of nothing that had filled this house like black water. Then he boiled water, tore a clean shirt into strips, and knelt beside the woman. Head wound, deep enough to see bone. The kind of wound you get from falling on rock or being thrown against one. He cleaned it and wrapped it tight, his hands remembering the motions from another life. The war had taught him field medicine. You learned fast or you watched men die. Her ribs on the left side were wrong, swollen and dark under the skin, cracked, maybe broken clean through. He had seen ribs like that before, on soldiers who had been kicked by horses. On his wife Rachel, who had fallen down the stairs in the dark trying to check on their son during the fever. Except Rachel had not fallen. She had collapsed from exhaustion from 3 days without sleep, from watching Daniel burn up with sickness and being powerless to stop it. He wrapped the ribs, pulling the cloth firm, but not too firm. The girl watched every move. She had not said a word since the porch, but her eyes tracked his hands like a hawk watching a snake. "Your mama is alive," Garrett said without looking up. "Heart is beating. She is breathing. That is more than I expected when I found her." "Nothing. My name is Garrett Stone. This is my ranch outside Elk Crossing, Montana territory. You came to my door in the middle of the worst storm this territory has seen in 20 years. Nothing. I am going to need you to talk to me at some point." The girl's hand moved slow. She reached toward the hearth and grabbed the iron poker leaning against the stone. She pulled it across the floor and held it against her chest with both hands, the pointed end aimed at Garrett. He looked at the poker, then at her. "Fair enough," he said. He finished wrapping the woman's ribs, checked her pulse again. Steadier now. The heat from the hearth was doing its work, pulling the cold out of her inch by inch. Her skin was changing from white to pink. That was good. White meant death. Pink meant fighting. "She needs water," Garrett said. "I am going to lift her head and put a cup to her lips. You can watch. You can hold that poker the whole time." He did exactly what he said he would do. Lifted her head, brought the cup close. Most of the water ran down her chin, but some went in. Her throat moved, swallowed. The girl made a sound, small, a half breath that carried something broken in it. "She swallowed," the girl whispered. First words besides, "Don't touch me." Her voice was hoarse, like she had been screaming for hours. Maybe she had. "She has not swallowed anything since yesterday." Garrett set the cup down. "When did you last eat?" The girl's fingers tightened on the poker. "That does not matter. It does if you fall over dead while I am trying to keep your mama alive." Silence. Then very quietly. "2 days, maybe 3. I cannot remember." Garrett stood and walked to the back of the house. He came back with dried beef, half a loaf of bread, and a cup of water. He set them on the floor 3 feet from the girl. "Not close. Close enough. Eat. I am not hungry. Your hands are shaking and your eyes cannot focus. You are starving. Eat." She stared at the food. Then she reached out with one hand, grabbed the bread, and bit into it. She ate fast, cramming it into her mouth so quick she gagged. Slow. "It is not going anywhere." "Things go away." She said it through a mouthful of bread, flat, simple, like she was stating a fact of nature, like gravity, like winter. "Everything goes away." Garrett had nothing to say to that. He sat in his chair and watched her eat. She finished the bread, then the beef, then drank the water in 3 long pulls. She never let go of the poker. "What is your name?" he asked. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "What is yours?" "Already told you, Garrett Stone." I was not listening. I noticed. "What is your name?" Her jaw worked. Deciding, testing, measuring him against every other adult she had ever known, and finding him wanting, probably. Finding him dangerous. Finding him just like all the rest, only bigger. "Grace," she said finally. "Just Grace." "All right, just Grace. Your mama got a name?" "Beth." The word came out soft, careful, like saying it too loud might break something. "Her name is Beth Walsh." Walsh, not Hartwell. The girl's face went white when she said it. The poker came up off the floor and pointed straight at his chest. "How do you know that name?" Garrett did not move. "I do not. I asked you." "You told me." Grace's arms were trembling. Not from cold this time. From something else. From rage, maybe. From fear that tasted like metal in the mouth and made the heart beat so fast you thought it might crack your ribs from the inside. "Mama said never tell anyone our real names." "Then Beth Walsh is not your real name." The girl said nothing, but the poker stayed up. Garrett leaned back in his chair. Slow, non-threatening, the way you move around a wild animal that has been hurt too many times. "In a town this small, word travels. Ruth Cooper at the boarding house mentioned a woman and her daughter arriving last week. Said the woman was supposed to marry Henry Bowen. That you came in on the stage 3 days ago and have been staying at her place while you figured out what to do." Grace's whole body went rigid. "Mr. Bowen is dead." "I know. Horse threw him 2 weeks ago. Broke his neck. Mama was supposed to marry him. We got here and Mrs. Cooper told us he was already dead. She let us stay in her boarding house. Then the storm came and we tried to get back to town from the ranch where Mr. Bowen lived. We got lost. So you came as a mail order bride. Mama did. I just came with her. Garrett studied the girl. 6 years old, and she talked like someone 3 times that. Old before her time. Eyes that had seen things. Bad things. The kind of things that hollowed you out and left you walking around like a shell. Where did you come from, he asked, before Montana. Grace's grip tightened on the poker. Why do you want to know? Because you showed up at my door half dead in a blizzard. Because your mama's first words were that someone is coming to kill you. Because I need to know what I am protecting you from. You are not protecting us. Then why did you drag your mama to my door? Grace looked at the hearth, at the fire that had been burning there. Garrett followed her gaze. The flames danced, orange and yellow and deep red at the heart. He had kept this fire going for 6 years because he could not stand the dark. Because the dark was when the memories came. Rachel's face as the fever took her. Daniel's small hand going limp in his. The graves he had dug in frozen ground with hands that bled until the shovels were slick with it. I saw your fire, Grace said quietly, through the snow. We were lost. Mama fell and hit her head on a rock. I could not carry her. I tried. Her voice cracked. Just a hairline. Just enough to show the wall she had built was not as strong as she pretended. I dragged her. I dragged her as far as I could. Then I saw your light. Something moved in Garrett's chest. Something that had been frozen for so long, he had forgotten it existed. This girl, 60 pounds of skin and bone and determination. She had dragged her unconscious mother through a Montana blizzard because she saw a light in a window. You did good, he said. His voice came out rougher than before. That took real courage. Grace looked at him. Really looked, like she was trying to see inside him, trying to find the crack, the lie, the place where the kindness turned to cruelty. Every adult in her life had probably taught her that lesson. Kindness is just cruelty, waiting for the right moment. Are you a good man, she asked. The question hit him like a hammer to the chest. Rachel had asked him that one once, the night before she died. Lying in their bed, burning with fever, holding his hand, while Daniel coughed in the next room. Are you a good man, Garrett? Promise me you are a good man. He had said yes. And then they died and he found out he was a liar. I used to be, he told Grace. Then some things happened that changed me. I am trying to figure out what I am now. Grace nodded slowly, like that answer meant something to her. Like every other adult in her life had given her certainty and followed it with a fist. This man who admitted he did not know. Maybe that made him different. Maybe that made him safe. Or maybe it just made him another kind of dangerous. On the floor, Beth stirred. A moan climbed up from somewhere deep. Her hand moved, reaching, grasping at air. Grace, barely a breath. Grace, baby, where are you? Right here, Mama. Grace dropped the poker and grabbed her mother's hand. I am right here. We are inside. We are warm. Beth's eyes opened, dark brown, clouded with pain, but alive. Her gaze swept the room and landed on Garrett. Every muscle in her body coiled tight. Who are you? She tried to rise and cried out, her arm going across her ribs. Stay down, Garrett said. Cracked ribs, head wound. You are at my ranch outside Elk Crossing. Grace. Beth's voice was sharp. Command. Mother protecting child. Come here. Come to me. I am here, Mama. He helped us. He fixed your head. Beth's eyes went to the poker on the floor, then back to Garrett. She was reading him, measuring him against every man who had ever hurt her, weighing him on a scale that did not tip easy, a scale calibrated by years of pain. The storm, Beth said. How bad? Worst in 20 years. Good. Beth closed her eyes, relief. He cannot move in this, not even Marcus. Who is he? Garrett asked. Who is coming? Beth opened her eyes and looked at him differently. Just a fraction of a degree. A shift so small most people would have missed it. The shift from stranger to possible ally. From threat to maybe, just maybe, something else. My husband, she said. The word came out like poison. Judge Edmund Hartwell, federal judge out of Philadelphia. Garrett went still. A federal judge is hunting you. He is hunting Grace. Beth turned her head to look at her daughter. He told everyone I kidnapped her, told the newspapers, told the police, told the church. He has a court order. Full custody. Did you kidnap her? I saved her. Beth's voice broke. I saved my daughter from a monster. From what? Grace pulled up her left sleeve. Even in the firelight, Garrett could see them. Small, round, evenly spaced. Burns. A dozen of them running from her wrist to her elbow. Someone had put out cigarettes on a 6-year-old child's arm. Garrett stopped breathing. The room tilted. He was back at Gettysburg, back in that field hospital tent, back watching a Confederate surgeon burn a boy's shattered leg stump to stop the bleeding. The boy had screamed and screamed and screamed until his voice gave out, and then he just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. Grace was staring at him the same way now. Empty. Like she had learned that showing pain only made it worse. When I cried too loud, Grace said. Her voice did not shake. Her voice was nothing. Empty. Reciting facts. When I dropped a fork. When I did not stand straight. When I looked at him wrong. Your mama knew, Garrett said. It was not a question. Mama tried to stop him. He broke her arm. Then he told the doctor she fell down the stairs. The doctor believed him because he is a judge, and judges do not lie. Grace pulled her sleeve down. Everyone believes him. Everyone always believes him. Garrett looked at his hands, scarred from the forge he used to run before he started ranching. Scarred from Gettysburg. Scarred from every night he spent doing physical work, because if he stopped moving, he would start remembering. If he stopped moving, he would have to think about the graves behind the house and the wife and son buried in them, and the fact that he should have been faster, smarter, better. I believe you, he said. Grace's chin trembled just once. Then she locked it down. 6 years old, and she had already learned to swallow tears before they could fall. That does not help. You are just one man in the middle of nowhere. That is true. Beth was watching him now, studying him with those dark eyes that had learned to read men the way sailors read weather, looking for the storm coming, looking for the moment when kindness would turn. We cannot stay, Beth said. When the storm breaks, we have to move. If Marcus finds us here, he will burn this place to the ground with you inside it. Let him try. You do not understand. Edmund is a federal judge. He has the law on his side. He has connections. He has money. He has power that reaches from Philadelphia to here. And I have this ranch, Garrett said, and I do not move for anyone. Beth stared at him. This stranger, this rancher with scarred hands and a house that smelled like wood smoke and whiskey and 6 years of grief. This man who had not asked for them, who had not wanted them, who should have turned them away the moment he saw what they were bringing to his door. Why, she asked, we are nothing to you. Garrett looked at the hearth, at the fire that had been burning there for 6 years. The fire he had kept going because he could not face the dark. Because the dark was when Rachel's voice faded and Daniel's laugh went silent, and he had to confront the fact that he had survived when they had not. Your girl walked through a blizzard to save your life, he said. She saw my fire and she dragged you to my door. 6 years I have kept that fire burning because I could not sleep, because the dark was worse than the flame, because I had nothing else. He turned back to Beth. Tonight that fire brought you here. I do not think that is nothing. Beth's eyes filled. She turned away fast, pressing her face into Grace's hair. One night, she said. We stay one night, then we go. Storm says different. One night, Mr. Stone. Garrett. One night, Garrett. He nodded, then he stood and walked to the window. The world outside was white and black and nothing else. The storm had buried everything. Roads, fences, landmarks. The whole territory had disappeared under 3 feet of snow and ice and wind that could strip flesh from bone if you stayed out in it too long. No one was riding through that. Not Marcus, not a federal judge, not anyone. They were safe, for now. Behind him, Grace was watching again. She had picked the poker back up, held it loose now, though. Not aimed, not a weapon anymore. Just something to hold, something solid in a world that had taught her nothing was solid except pain. Garrett, she said. He turned. Thank you for the bread. 4 words. That was all. but they landed somewhere inside his chest that he thought had gone cold a long time ago. Somewhere near the place where Rachel's voice used to live, where Daniel's laugh used to echo off the walls. "You are welcome," he said, and his voice cracked on the second word, and he turned away so the girl would not see his face. Outside, the storm buried Montana territory under 3 feet of snow and ice and howling wind. Roads disappeared. Rivers froze solid. The world shrank down to whatever you could see from your own window. Inside the ranch house, a woman and her daughter lay beside a fire that had been burning for 6 years, for no reason at all. Except now there was a reason. Garrett Stone sat in his chair with a bottle he did not open and listened to them breathe. 2 sets of lungs, 2 heartbeats, 2 people alive in his house for the first time since Rachel and Daniel. The girl trusted him enough to eat his bread. The woman trusted him enough to close her eyes. That was more trust than either of them had given anyone in a long time. Garrett knew it, and the weight of it sat on his shoulders like a yoke he thought he had thrown off 6 years ago. Somewhere out there, past the white wall of the storm, a man named Marcus was coming. Behind him, a federal judge in Philadelphia was pulling strings. And between them and this woman and this child stood nothing but a rancher and a rifle and a fire that would not go out. The storm held for 2 days. Beth slept through most of the first one. Garrett checked her breathing every hour, pressed his hand to her forehead, counted the seconds between each rise and fall of her chest. The fever came on the second night, rolling in like a second storm. Her skin went from cold to burning in a matter of hours, and she started talking to people who were not there. "Thomas, close the window. Thomas, she is cold." Grace sat beside her mother and held her hand and did not cry. She had run out of tears somewhere between Philadelphia and Montana territory. What was left was something harder than tears, something forged. "Who is Thomas?" Garrett asked. Grace did not look up. "A man Mama knew before. He helped us get to St. Louis. He was kind." "What happened to him?" "Marcus happened to him." Garrett did not ask anything else. He worked the fever with cold rags and willow bark tea that he forced between Beth's lips when she was lucid enough to swallow. He had learned medicine the way every soldier learned it, by watching men die and remembering what the ones who lived had done differently. Grace would not leave her mother's side. She ate when Garrett put food in front of her and drank when he set water down. But she would not move from that spot on the floor, and she would not let go of the poker. On the second morning, Garrett woke in his chair and found Grace at the hearth. She had taken a piece of charcoal from the fire and was drawing on the stone floor. Small, careful lines. Garrett leaned forward to see. It was a house, a tall house with many windows, and in every window a face was screaming. He sat back, did not say anything. The girl drew for another 20 minutes, then wiped the whole thing away with her sleeve and went back to sit beside her mother. That afternoon, Beth's fever broke. She opened her eyes and they were clear for the first time since she had arrived. She looked at Garrett, then at Grace, then at the hearth. She tried to sit up. "Stay down," Garrett said. "How long?" 2 days. Beth's face tightened. "The storm, still going, but weakening. Then we need to leave. You cannot stand up without passing out. You are not leaving anywhere." Beth pushed herself up on one elbow. The color drained from her face so fast Garrett thought she would go down again. But she held, stubborn. He was starting to see where Grace got it. "Garrett," Beth's voice was thin but steady, "you have been generous beyond anything I had a right to expect. But you do not understand what you are inviting into your life." "You keep saying that." "Because it is true. Edmund is not a man who loses. He does not stop. He does not forget. He does not forgive. When he decides something belongs to him, he takes it. And right now he has decided that Grace belongs to him. Grace does not belong to anyone." "Tell that to a federal court." Beth's voice cracked. "He has a custody order signed by a judge in Pennsylvania. His friend, his colleague. It says I am mentally unstable, that I kidnapped my own child, that I am a danger to her." "Is any of that true?" Beth's eyes flashed. "I ran from a man who burned my daughter with cigarettes. If that makes me unstable, then I will wear that word like a badge." Garrett almost smiled. "Almost. Good answer." "It is not an answer, it is a death sentence. Every town we stop in, every person who helps us, Marcus finds them. He makes them pay. In St. Louis, a woman let us stay in her attic for a week. Marcus broke her windows and nailed a dead cat to her door. She had 3 children. Marcus sounds like a man who needs to meet me. This is not a joke. I am not joking. Beth stared at him. She was searching his face the way Grace had done that first night, looking for the crack, the tell, the place where the lie lived. What happened to you, she asked. What do you mean? A man does not live alone on a ranch for 6 years without a reason. A man does not keep a fire burning all night because he likes the warmth. Something happened to you, and I need to know what it was before I trust you with my daughter's life. The room went quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. That is not a story for today, Garrett said. It is exactly a story for today. You are asking me to stay in your house. You are putting yourself between my daughter and a man who has killed to get what he wants. I need to know who you are. Garrett stood. He walked to the hearth and looked at the fire, at the flames that had been burning for 6 years, at the heat that kept the ghosts at bay but could not make them disappear. I was a soldier, he said, Union Army. I fought at Gettysburg and Antietam and a dozen places whose names I have forgotten. I saw things that do not leave a man, did things that do not leave either. He paused. After the war, I came west, married a woman named Rachel, had a son, Daniel. They died. Winter of '72. Fever took Rachel in 4 days. Daniel lasted 6. Beth was quiet. I buried them in ground so frozen I broke 2 shovels digging the holes. After that, I stopped. Stopped talking. Stopped caring. Stopped being anything except a man with a ranch and a bottle and enough anger to fill this whole territory. Anger at what? Everything. God, the fever, myself for not getting them to a doctor fast enough, for being too proud to ask for help, for surviving them when they did not. Grace had stopped moving. She was listening from her spot on the floor. Her eyes were wide. The poker was loose in her hands. Is that what you needed to hear? Garrett asked. Beth was quiet for a long time. Then she said, your son. How old was he? 3. Grace's age when it started, when Edmund started hurting her. The words connected something between them. A wire pulled tight across the space, vibrating with a frequency only the 2 of them could hear. 2 parents, 2 children, 2 different kinds of losing. I am not going to pretend I understand what you went through, Beth said, and I am not going to pretend that staying here is safe, but I need you to promise me something. What? If Marcus comes and it goes bad, if there is no way out, you get Grace away from here. Not me, her. You take her and you ride, and you do not stop until she is safe. Beth, promise me. Garrett looked at Grace. The girl was staring at him with those eyes that had seen things no child should see, eyes that had survived things no child should survive. I promise, he said. Thank you. They were both quiet after that. Grace crawled up next to Beth and put her head on her mother's chest. Beth stroked her hair with fingers that were still trembling from the fever. Mama, Grace said. Yes, baby. His son was 3. I heard. That is how old I was when Papa started being mean. Beth's hand stopped moving. She pulled Grace closer and pressed her lips to the top of her head. She did not say anything. There was nothing to say. The storm died on the 3rd morning. Garrett opened the door to a world buried in white. 3 feet of snow, maybe more in the drifts. The cold hit his face like a slap, and his lungs burned with it. He was checking the horses in the barn when he heard it. The sound of riders, multiple horses moving fast from the direction of Elk Crossing. Coming up the trail toward the ranch, Garrett grabbed his rifle and moved to the barn door. 3 riders, no 4. They were still a half-mile out, but he could see them clearly against the white landscape. Dark shapes on dark horses cutting through the snow like sharks through water. He walked back to the house, fast but not running. Running would scare Beth and Grace. Running would tell them the thing they feared most had arrived. Beth, he said when he came through the door, we have company. She was on her feet before he finished the sentence. How many? 4 riders, coming from town. The color left Beth's face. Marcus? Maybe, maybe not. It is him. I know it is. Grace stood up, silent. She picked up the poker and held it with both hands. Ready. Garrett checked the load in his rifle. Full. He picked up his pistol from the mantel and tucked it in his belt. Then he looked at Beth. Stay inside. Keep Grace with you. If shooting starts, you take her to the back room and you do not come out until I come get you. Garrett, do you trust me? Beth looked at him. This man she had known for 3 days. This stranger who had opened his door in a blizzard. This rancher who had promised to protect them even though it might cost him everything. Yes, she said, I trust you. Then stay inside. Garrett walked out onto the porch. The riders were closer now, close enough to see details. The lead rider was tall, lean, wearing a black coat. A scar ran from his left cheekbone to the corner of his mouth. Behind him, 3 more men. Big, armed, the kind of men who got paid to stand behind other men and look dangerous. They stopped 20 feet from the porch, close enough to talk, close enough to shoot. The scarred man smiled. The scar made it ugly. Mr. Stone, his voice was smooth, educated, the kind of voice that belonged in a courtroom, not on a frozen trail in Montana territory. My name is Marcus Flynn. I am a licensed investigator working on behalf of Judge Edmund Hartwell of Philadelphia. I believe you may be harboring his wife and daughter. Garrett said nothing. I have a court order granting Judge Hartwell temporary custody of the minor child Grace Hartwell. I also have a warrant for the arrest of Elizabeth Hartwell on charges of parental kidnapping. Marcus pulled papers from inside his coat and held them up. I am asking politely for you to open this door and turn them over. No, Marcus's smile disappeared. Mr. Stone, I appreciate your hospitality during the storm, but this is a legal matter. I have proper documentation. If you interfere with the execution of a federal court order, you are committing a crime. Then I am committing a crime. I was hoping we could handle this like gentlemen. I am not a gentleman, I am a rancher. Say what you came to say and get off my property. Marcus looked past Garrett into the house. His eyes found Beth standing in the shadows, found Grace beside her. Something moved across his face. Not recognition, satisfaction, the look of a bee that has cornered what it was chasing. Hello, Elizabeth, Marcus said. You have led me on quite a chase. Get off this property. Beth's voice was iron. I am afraid I cannot do that. Your husband misses his daughter terribly. He only wants what is best for her. His best puts cigarette burns on her arms. Marcus did not blink. Those allegations were investigated and dismissed. Judge Hartwell was cleared of all charges. By his own friends in his own courthouse. By a court of law, Mrs. Hartwell, the same court that issued this warrant. Marcus turned back to Garrett. Mr. Stone, I am going to be direct with you. I have no quarrel with you. You took in a woman and child during a storm. That is admirable, but this situation has nothing to do with you. Hand them over and we will be on our way. Garrett leaned against the doorframe. No. I have 3 armed men behind me in the authority of a federal court, and I have a rifle and a real bad disposition. So we are even. One of the men behind Marcus shifted. His hand moved toward his holster. Garrett's rifle came up so fast the man froze mid-reach. Tell your boy to keep his hands where I can see them, Garrett said, or I will make a decision for him. Marcus raised a hand without turning around. The man stepped back. You are making a mistake, Mr. Stone. I have made plenty. This is not one of them. Marcus studied him for a long moment. Then his eyes shifted to something behind Garrett, to Grace. Hello, Grace. His voice changed, softened. Fake kindness. Your father wants you to know he loves you very much. Grace stepped out from behind Beth. Her whole body was trembling, but she looked Marcus dead in the eye. My name is Grace, she said, and my father is a liar. Marcus's smile disappeared. For 1 second, something real flickered behind those flat eyes. Irritation, maybe. Surprise. He was not used to children who talked back. You have poisoned this child's mind, Marcus said to Beth. Judge Hartwell will be heartbroken. Judge Hartwell has no heart to break. We will let the courts decide that. Marcus folded the papers and slipped them back into his coat. I will return Mr. Stone with a territorial marshal, with proper authority, and when I do, there will be no door in Montana thick enough to keep me out. He turned and walked to his horse. Mounted. His men followed. They rode back down the trail without looking back, 4 dark shapes disappearing into the white landscape. Garrett closed the door. Beth let out a breath she had been holding so long. Her whole body shuddered. Grace pressed her face into her mother's side, And finally, the tears came. Silent and hard, shaking her small frame. "He found us," Beth whispered. "He always finds us." "He found you," Garrett said, "but he left empty-handed. That is different from every other time." "He will come back." "I know. With marshals. With the law." "I know that too." Beth looked at him with eyes that held no hope. "What do? We get our own law." 2 hours later, a wagon came up the trail. Ruth Cooper sat on the seat with Reverend Thomas Bishop beside her. The wagon fought through snow that came up to the axle, but Ruth drove it like she was driving through summer grass. 62 years old and tougher than most men half her age. She came through the door like a woman who had been waiting her whole life to fight something worth fighting. "Where are they?" she said before her boots were off. "By the hearth," Garrett said. Ruth crossed the room and knelt in front of Beth. She took the younger woman's hands in both of hers. "I am Ruth Cooper. I am the one who brought you to Elk Crossing. I am the one who arranged your match with Henry Bowen. I am the one who was too slow to help you when that telegram came warning you Marcus was close. And I am the one who is going to make sure that man never touches your daughter again." Beth stared at her. "You cannot promise that." "Watch me." Reverend Bishop removed his hat and sat down across from Garrett, 55. Thin as a rail with eyes that had seen every kind of sin Montana Territory had to offer, and still chose to believe in something better. "Ruth told me everything," he said. "The husband, the detective, the court order." "What can you do?" Garrett asked. "More than you think. I have a friend, Judge William Beckett in Helena. He is territorial, not federal, but he is honest and he despises men who use the law as a weapon. If we can get Beth's story in front of him, he can issue a counter order. Emergency protection for the child pending a proper hearing." "How long?" "If I send a telegram today, I can have a response in 3 days, maybe 4. Marcus said he is coming back with marshals. Marshals take time. He has to ride to the federal office in Trillings. In this weather, that is 4 days round trip at least. We have a window." Beth was shaking her head. "You do not know Edmund. He does not wait for marshals. He sends Marcus first to find us, then he comes himself. And when Edmund comes, he brings everything." "Is he here?" Bishop asked. "In Montana. I do not know. But if Marcus is here, Edmund is not far behind." Bishop and Ruth exchanged a look. Then Ruth stood. "Thomas, you send that telegram today. I will talk to the sheriff. William Crane is a good man. When he sees what that monster did to this child, he will listen." "The sheriff will not go against a federal judge," Garrett said. "Our sheriff will listen to reason. Will has a daughter Grace's age. When he sees those burns, he will not let Marcus Flynn anywhere near this ranch." Grace had been quiet through all of this, sitting on the floor, drawing with charcoal on a scrap of leather Garrett had given her. She looked up now. "It will not work," she said. Every adult in the room turned to look at her. "It never works. Mama tried in Philadelphia. She went to the police. They sent her home. She tried in New York. A judge said Papa had rights. She tried in St. Louis, and a lawyer took all our money and then told Papa where we were." Grace's voice was flat, empty. "Nobody stops him. Nobody ever stops him." The room was silent. Ruth crossed to Grace and lowered herself to the floor with a creak of old knees. She looked at the drawing on the leather. It was a horse running with a girl on its back, riding away from a dark shape that had no face. "That is a fine horse," Ruth said. "It is not real." "Not yet, but sometimes the things we draw become the things we live. I have seen it happen." "You have not seen my father." "No, I have not, but I have seen men like him. I have buried 2 husbands' child. The first one was a saint. The second one was the devil walking. He hit me so hard once I could not see straight for a week." Grace looked up. "What did you do?" "I hit him back with a skillet. Then I walked to the sheriff and I showed him the bruises and I told him if he did not arrest that man, I would handle it myself and he could arrest me instead." "What happened?" "Sheriff arrested him. He died in jail 2 years later. Mean drunk to the end." Ruth put her hand on Grace's knee. "I know you think no one can stop your father. I know every person who was supposed to protect you let you down. But you are not in Philadelphia anymore. You are in Montana Territory. And out here, we do things different." Grace searched Ruth's face. looking for the lie, looking for the moment when this old woman would turn into just another adult who promised help and delivered nothing. Different how? Grace asked. Out here, when a man hurts a child, we do not write letters to judges. We ride to his door and we make him answer for it. Something changed in Grace's eyes. Not hope, not yet, but the space where hope could grow if someone gave it room. Bishop sent the telegram that afternoon. Ruth went to see Sheriff Crane. Garrett stayed at the ranch with Beth and Grace, cleaning his rifle, checking the windows, watching the trail. The answer came back faster than expected. The next morning, a rider from town brought it to the ranch. Garrett read it twice to make sure he understood. Judge Beckett had approved the emergency protection order, effective immediately. It barred anyone from removing Grace from Montana territory until a full hearing could be held. Beckett was also requesting an investigation into the original custody order from Pennsylvania. The hearing was set for 2 weeks in Helena. Beth cried when Garrett told her, not the quiet tears she had been holding back, real tears, the kind that came from a place so deep she had forgotten it existed, the place where people kept hope before the world beat it out of them. He said yes, she whispered. A judge actually said yes. Judge Beckett is not like the judges you knew in Philadelphia, Garrett said. He is territorial. He answers to Montana, not to Edmund Hartwell's friends. Edmund will appeal. He will find a way around this. Then we fight that fight when it comes. But right now, for the first time since you left Philadelphia, the law is on your side. Grace was standing in the doorway, listening. Her face was unreadable. 6 years old, and she had already learned not to trust good news. Good news was usually followed by bad news. Good news was just the world setting you up for the fall. Does this mean we can stay? She asked. Beth looked at Garrett. The question hung in the air between them. For 2 weeks, Garrett said, until the hearing. And then we go to Helena and we tell Judge Beckett everything, and we show him those burns on your arms, and we let him decide. Grace nodded. Then she walked over to Garrett and looked up at him. Can you teach me something? What do you want to learn? How to shoot a bow. Garrett glanced at Beth. She nodded. Why a bow? He asked Grace. Because guns are loud, and sometimes you need to be quiet. This child, 6 years old and thinking like a soldier, thinking like someone who might need to defend herself, who might need to fight, who might need to survive. All right, Garrett said. I will teach you, but first rule of any weapon. You only use it when you have to, not because you are angry, not because you are scared, only when there is no other choice. Papa used his weapons when he was angry. Your papa was wrong. A weapon is a tool. Tools have purpose. You do not use a hammer to cut bread. You do not use a knife to pound nails. And you do not use violence unless every other option is gone. Grace thought about this. What if every other option is gone? Garrett looked at her. This small girl with old eyes and burn scars on her arms, and a mother who had dragged her across half a country to keep her safe. Then you use it, he said, and you do not hesitate. They went outside. The snow was deep, but the sun was out for the first time in 4 days. Bright against the white, blinding, beautiful. Garrett set up a target, a hay bale with a piece of wood nailed to the front. He showed Grace how to hold the bow, how to nock the arrow, how to draw from the shoulder, not the arm. Let the bow do the work, he said. You do not need to be strong, you need to be steady. Grace pulled the string back. Her arms shook. The arrow wobbled. She released and it flew wide, missing the target by 3 feet. Again. She tried again, and again, and again. Each time the arrow went a little straighter. Each time her arms shook a little less. On the 10th try, the arrow hit the wood. Not the center, but it hit. Grace looked at Garrett with something like wonder in her eyes. I did it. You did it. Now do it again. She did it again and again. By the time the sun started to set, she was hitting the target more than she was missing it. Beth watched from the porch, arms crossed against the cold, face unreadable. When Garrett and Grace came back inside, Beth pulled Grace into a hug and held on like she might never let go. That night, after Grace fell asleep on the floor beside the hearth, Beth sat across from Garrett at the table. Thank you, she said, for teaching her, for giving her something besides fear. She is a fast learner. She has had to be. Beth paused. Can I ask you something? You have been asking me things since you woke up. Why stop now? A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Then it was gone. Your wife, Rachel, what was she like? Garrett was quiet for a long time. The fire popped. The wind howled outside. The house settled around them like it was listening too. She laughed loud, he said finally. Too loud. Her mother always said so. She burned everything she cooked. Every single thing. I ate charcoal for 3 years and told her it was delicious. Something that might have been a laugh escaped him. Broken, rusty, like a door hinge that had not moved in 6 years. She sang to Daniel every night. Same song, some hymn her grandmother taught her. She could not carry a tune to save her life. Worst singing I ever heard. You loved her. More than I knew how to say. And when she died, I figured that was it. Used up my share of loving. Nothing left. Do you still believe that? Garrett looked at the hearth, at the fire that had been burning for 6 years, at the orange glow that pushed back the shadows, but could never quite reach the corners. I do not know what I believe anymore. Beth slid off the bench and crossed to where Grace slept. She lowered herself to the floor and pulled her daughter close. Then she looked up at Garrett. Rachel sounds wonderful, she said. She was. She would not want you to be alone forever. Garrett said nothing. What was there to say? Rachel was dead. Daniel was dead. And here he was with a woman and child who might be dead in 2 weeks if Edmund Hartwell got his way. If the law sided with a federal judge over a territorial one. If Marcus came back with enough men and enough guns. Beth seemed to read his thoughts. Whatever happens in Helena, thank you for these days. For giving Grace a place to heal. For giving me hope that maybe, just maybe, good men still exist. She closed her eyes, exhausted, still healing from the head wound and the fever and the years of running. Garrett sat in his chair and watched them sleep. Mother and daughter, broken but not destroyed, battered but still fighting, the fire burned on. And for the first time in 6 years, Garrett Stone did not feel alone. The wedding happened 4 days after the storm. Reverend Bishop officiated in the ranch house because Beth could not ride to town and Garrett would not leave the property unguarded. Ruth Cooper served as witness. Sheriff William Crane came too, standing by the door with his hand on his belt, watching the trail for riders that might come. Grace held a wooden horse Garrett had carved for her. Rough work, unpolished, but the shape was there. 4 legs, a mane, a tail. She held it like it was made of gold. When Bishop asked Garrett if he would take Elizabeth as his wife, Garrett said, I will. Simple, firm, no hesitation. When Bishop asked Beth the same, she looked at Garrett for a long moment. She looked at Grace. She looked at the hearth where the fire was burning. I will, she said. There was no kiss. They were not there yet. But when it was done, Beth reached over and straightened the collar of Garrett's shirt. The gesture was small, domestic, intimate in a way that a kiss would not have been. You had soot on your collar, she said. I always have soot on my collar. I know, I will work on that. Grace tugged on Garrett's hand. Does this mean you are my father now? Garrett knelt down. It means I am the man who is going to take care of you and your mama. You can call me whatever you want. Grace thought about this. Can I call you Garrett? You have been calling me Garrett for a week. That's still all right with you? I just wanted to make sure. She threw her arms around his neck. Garrett closed his eyes and held her. The last frozen part of him gave way like river ice in April. Something warm rushed in to fill the space. Something he thought had died with Rachel and Daniel. Beth joined them, her arms around them both. 3 people on the floor of a ranch house. 3 people who had found each other in a blizzard. 3 people who were now a family by law, if not yet by love. Ruth dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Bishop smiled. Sheriff Crane cleared his throat and looked away, but not before Garrett saw the emotion on his face. The sheriff had a daughter Grace's age. He understood what was at stake here. Mrs. Stone, Ruth said, that has a good sound to it. Beth looked at Garrett. Yes, it does. The telegram from Helena arrived that afternoon. A rider brought it from town. Garrett read it on the porch while Beth and Grace waited inside. His face did not change as he read, but his grip on the paper tightened. He came back inside and handed it to Beth. Judge Samuel Beckett had issued the emergency protection order. Grace could not be removed from Montana Territory until a full hearing. The hearing was set for 2 weeks in Helena. Beckett was requesting an investigation into the original Pennsylvania custody order and had noted irregularities in how it had been obtained. Beth read it twice. Then she sat down hard on the bench, pressing the telegram against her chest. He said yes, she whispered. A territorial judge said yes. Beckett is known for being fair, Bishop said, and he has no love for federal judges who overstep their bounds. Edmund will appeal. He will find a way. Let him try, Sheriff Crane said. He had taken off his hat and was holding it in his hands. I went to see Marcus Flynn this morning after the ceremony. Told him if he comes within a mile of this property, I will arrest him. On what charge? Beth asked. Intimidation. Trespassing. I will figure something out. Crane's jaw was tight. My daughter is 6, same age as Grace. When Ruth told me what happened, what that man did to his own child, I made a decision. Federal judge or not, he is not taking that girl. Grace was watching from the corner, silent, her face unreadable. 6 years old, and she had already learned not to trust promises, not to believe in safety, not to hope. But something in Sheriff Crane's voice made her look up, made her eyes focus on this man with a badge and a gun and a daughter the same age. This man who was choosing to stand between her and Edmund Hartwell. Thank you, Grace said, quiet, almost a whisper. No one ever helped before. Crane's face softened. He crossed the room and knelt in front of her. I am sorry about that, Grace, but you are in Montana now. We take care of our own here. That night, after Ruth and Bishop and the sheriff had gone, after Grace had fallen asleep by the hearth with the wooden horse clutched in her hand, Beth found Garrett outside checking the horses. The moon was full. The snow reflected the light until the whole world seemed to glow, beautiful and cold and empty. Thank you, Beth said, for marrying me, for giving us a chance. We are partners now, like we agreed. Is that all we are? Garrett turned to face her. What do you want us to be? Beth looked at the ranch house, at the light coming from the windows, at the smoke rising from the chimney, at this place that had become a sanctuary when she had nowhere else to go. I do not know yet, she said, but I know this. You are a good man, Garrett Stone, whether you believe it or not. I killed 47 men at Gettysburg. In war, because you had to. Does that make it different? Yes. Beth stepped closer. Edmund hurt people because it made him feel powerful. You fought because it was your duty, because men were depending on you, because it was kill or be killed. She paused. There is a difference. Garrett said nothing. Beth reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were small in his, cold from the night air, but steady. I am not asking you to forget Rachel, she said. I am not asking you to love me. But I am asking you to believe that you deserve a second chance, that we both do. He looked at their joined hands, at the way her fingers fit between his, at the way she held on like she might not let go. I will try, he said. That is all anyone can do. She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, quick, chaste. Then she pulled away and walked back to the house, leaving him standing in the moonlight with the ghost of her touch on his skin. 3 nights after the wedding, Grace woke screaming. Garrett was up before he was fully awake, rifle in hand, looking for the threat. But there was no threat. Just Grace thrashing on her blankets by the hearth, her eyes wide and unseeing, her mouth open in a scream that went on and on. Beth was already beside her, trying to wake her, but Grace fought. Her small fists swung wild. She caught Beth across the face, scratching deep. Grace, baby, wake up. You are safe. Wake up. But Grace could not hear her. She was somewhere else. Somewhere dark. Somewhere a federal judge burned his daughter's arms with cigarettes and told her it was for her own good. Garrett set down the rifle and he knelt on the other side. He did not touch her. He had seen this before. In the field hospitals after battles. Soldiers who woke screaming and did not know where they were. Who fought anyone who tried to help because in their minds they were still on the battlefield and everyone was the enemy. Grace, he said, low, steady, the voice he had used with frightened horses and wounded men. You are at Stone Creek Ranch. You are with your mama. You are with me, Garrett. You are safe here. No one is going to hurt you. He kept talking, same words over and over, same calm tone. Slowly, Grace's movements became less violent. Her eyes began to focus. She looked at Garrett, at Beth, at the hearth, in the walls, in the ceiling. Garrett, her voice was small, broken. I am here. I was back there, in Philadelphia, in the house. Papa was burning Mama and I could not stop him. Beth pulled Grace close. Just a dream, baby. Just a dream. It felt real. I know. Grace turned to Garrett. Do they ever stop the nightmares? He could have lied, could have told her, yes, they stop, you will be fine. But this child deserved the truth. She had lived through too many lies already. I still have them, he said, from the war. Men dying, friends I could not save. My son, when the fever took him. They get quieter over time, but they do not disappear completely. Then how do you keep going? You find things worth waking up for, things that matter more than the nightmares. Grace looked at the wooden horse on the floor where she had dropped it. Like what? Like people who need you, like promises you made, like the chance to do better today than you did yesterday. Beth was crying quietly. She pressed her face into Grace's hair to hide it, but Garrett saw. He saw everything. The way her shoulders shook, the way her hand trembled when she reached for Grace, the way she held on like she was drowning and Grace was the only thing keeping her afloat. I have nightmares too, Beth said, about Edmund finding us, about losing you, about being too late to save you. Grace pulled back to look at her mother. You already saved me. You got me out. But I should have done it sooner, before he hurt you so many times, before you learned to be afraid of your own father. You did not know he would be that bad. I should have known. The signs were there. I just wanted to believe he would change, that he loved us enough to stop. Garrett stood up. He walked to the hearth and added wood to the fire. It had burned low while they slept. Now he built it back up until the flames climbed high and the heat pushed against the cold. You both survived, he said. That is what matters. You got out. You got away. And now you are here and you are safe and that monster is 1,000 miles away. For now, Beth said. For now is all we have. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Grace crawled into her mother's lap. Beth rocked her like she was 3 instead of 6, like she could make up for all the times Edmund had refused to let Beth comfort her daughter, all the times he had said crying was weakness and weakness needed to be punished. Garrett watched them. He thought about Rachel rocking Daniel, about the lullabies she sang off-key, about the way Daniel had laughed at her terrible singing, but loved it anyway because it was his mama and she was singing to him, and that made it perfect. Garrett, Grace said, yeah, thank you for telling the truth about the nightmares. You are welcome. Most grown-ups lie to make you feel better. I am not most grown-ups. Grace almost smiled. No, you are not. The next morning, Garrett took Grace outside to practice with the bow. The sun was bright and the snow was melting in patches, revealing brown earth underneath. Spring was coming, slowly, reluctantly, but coming. Grace had gotten better. Her arrows flew straight now. More hit the target than missed. She was starting to understand the rhythm of it. Draw, aim, breathe, release. Let the bow do the work. Why are you teaching me this? Grace asked after hitting the center of the target 3 times in a row. So you know you can defend yourself. Against Papa. Against anyone. Against anything. Grace lowered the bow. If Papa comes with men and guns, a bow will not stop him. Maybe not, but knowing you can fight, knowing you have skill, that changes something inside. It makes you less afraid. And when you are less afraid, you make better choices. What kind of choices? The kind that keep you alive. Grace thought upon this. Then she raised the bow and fired again. The arrow hit dead center. From the shoulder, Garrett said, just like that. Let the bow do the work. You keep saying that because it is true. You do not need to be strong, Grace. You just need to be steady. She looked at him. Is that how you survived the war, by being steady? That is how I survived it, of everything. War, loss, 6 years of wishing I had not survived. Do you still wish that? Garrett looked at the ranch house, at Beth standing in the doorway watching them, at the smoke rising from the chimney, at this life that had somehow built itself around him without him noticing. No, he said, I do not wish that anymore. Grace smiled, small, brief, but real. Good, because we need you. That afternoon, while Grace napped, Beth and Garrett sat at the table with coffee. Outside, the snow was melting faster. Water dripped from the roof. The temperature was climbing. Winter was finally losing its grip. There is something I have not told you, Beth said. About Edmund, about why he is so desperate to get Grace back. Garrett waited. He had learned Beth would talk when she was ready. Pushing only made her shut down. Grace's grandfather died 2 years ago, Beth said. Edmund's father, Judge Nathaniel Hartwell. He was even worse than Edmund, if you can believe it. Beat Edmund as a child, locked him in cellars, burned him with candles when he misbehaved. So Edmund learned from his father. Yes, and when Nathaniel died, he left a fortune, $500,000. Garrett went still. $500,000 was more money than most people saw in 10 lifetimes. More money than a federal judge would make in 30 years. Let me guess, Garrett said. The money goes to Grace. Beth nodded. To the first Hartwell grandchild. But there is a condition. The child must be under the legal guardianship of a Hartwell male family member until age 18. Then they inherit. And Edmund is the only Hartwell male left. Yes, if Grace stays with him until she turns 18, he controls the fortune. He can use it, invest it, live off it. She will never see a penny of it. And if she is not with him, the money goes to charity, all of it. Garrett sat back. The pieces were falling into place. Edmund did not want his daughter because he loved her. He wanted her because she was worth $500,000, because she was his ticket to wealth and power beyond what a federal judge's salary could provide. So this was never about being a father, Garrett said. Edmund sees Grace as property, valuable property. If he loses her, he loses everything. That is why he has Marcus hunting you. Marcus and whoever else he can hire. Edmund will spend every dollar he has to get Grace back, because once he has her, he will make back 10 times what he spent. Beth's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat on the table. I should have told you before the wedding, before you made yourself a target. Would it have changed anything? I do not know. Maybe. You would have understood how dangerous this is. How far Edmund will go. Garrett reached across the table and covered her hand with his. I knew it was dangerous the moment I saw those burns on Grace's arms. The money does not change that. It changes the stakes. Edmund is not just fighting for pride or control. He is fighting for $500,000. Then we make sure he loses. Beth looked at their joined hands, at the way his fingers curled around hers, at the calluses from work and the scars from war, and the strength that came from years of surviving things that should have killed him. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really, you could have turned us away, could have sent us to the sheriff and washed your hands of the whole thing. But you did not. You married me. You are teaching my daughter to defend herself. You are putting everything you have on the line. Why? Garrett was quiet for a long time. The fire crackled. Water dripped from the eaves. Somewhere outside a bird called. The first bird song he had heard since winter started. Because when you and Grace showed up at my door, you were the first living things that had needed me in 6 years. The first people who gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. The first thing that made me feel like maybe I had not died with Rachel and Daniel. Like maybe there was still something worth fighting for. His voice roughened. And because no child should go through what Grace has been through. No woman should have to run across half a country to keep her daughter safe. If I can do something about that, if I can stand between you and the man who hurt you, then I will. Even if it costs me everything. Beth's eyes filled. Garrett, I am not done. You asked me once if I was a good man. I did not have an answer. But I am starting to think that maybe being good is not about what you have done. It is about what you choose to do now, today, when it matters. He stood up, pulled her to her feet. They stood facing each other across 2 feet of space that felt like 2 miles. I am choosing you, Garrett said. I am choosing Grace. I am choosing this fight. And I do not care how much money Edmund has, or how powerful he is, or what the law says. He is not getting her back. Beth closed the distance between them. She put her hand on his chest over his heart. You are a good man, Garrett Stone. And I am glad Grace dragged me to your door. So am I. They stood like that for a moment, close enough to feel each other's warmth, close enough to hear each other breathe. Then Beth stepped back, breaking the connection. I should check on Grace, she said. Beth, she turned. We are going to win this, I promise you. She wanted to believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But she had learned not to trust promises, had learned that promises were just words and words meant nothing when the world was cruel. "I hope you are right," she said. Then she walked away, leaving him standing by the table with the echo of her words hanging in the air. 3 days after the wedding, Beth woke feeling ill. She barely made it outside before she was sick. Garrett found her on the porch, pale and shaking. "Are you all right?" "I am fine, just something I ate." But it happened again the next morning, and the next. Ruth noticed when she came to visit. "How long has this been going on?" Ruth asked, watching Beth turn green at the smell of coffee. "A week, maybe 2, since before the storm." Ruth's eyes went wide. "Child, you are pregnant." Beth's hand went to her stomach. "No, I cannot be. Edmund and we have not been together in months before I left." Months can be enough. The truth settled over Beth like a weight. She was carrying Edmund's child, the child of a monster, and Garrett deserved to know. She told him that night, quiet, ashamed, waiting for him to change, to pull away, to regret everything. "It is Edmund's," she said. "Conceived before I left Philadelphia, before I even knew I would run. I am so sorry." Garrett was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "Does Edmund know?" "No, I did not know myself until now." "Then it is not his, it is ours. This baby will be born a stone, raised a stone, loved as a stone. Edmund has no claim." "Garrett, you do not have to." "I know I do not have to. I want to. This child did not choose Edmund as a father any more than Grace did. But I am choosing to be this child's father, if you will let me." Beth's eyes filled. "You are a better man than I deserve. You deserve everything." He pulled her close, held her while she cried, while the fear and shame poured out, while she let herself believe just for a moment that maybe things could be different, that maybe this baby would have a real father, a good father, a father who would never hurt them. "What if the baby looks like him?" Beth whispered. "Then the baby looks like him. But that child will be raised to be nothing like him. That child will know love, will know safety, will never know the back of a hand or the burn of a cigarette or the fear that comes from living with a monster." Beth pulled back to look at him. "How are you so sure?" "Because I lost a son, and I would give anything to have that chance again, to be a father again, to do it right this time. This baby is that chance, and I am not letting it go." She kissed him then. Not the chaste kiss on the cheek from before. This was real, deep, full of everything she had been holding back. Gratitude and hope, and the beginning of something that might become love if they let it. When they pulled apart, Garrett said, "We should tell Grace." "Not yet. Let her have this time without worry. We will tell her when she is ready." 5 days after the wedding, Garrett had to ride into Elk Crossing for supplies. Beth wanted to come, wanted to show her face in town, wanted to prove she was not hiding. Ruth had sent word that the town was divided over the situation. Some people sympathized with Beth. Others thought a federal judge would not be hunting his own wife without good reason. They took the wagon. Garrett drove. Beth sat beside him with Grace between them. The road was muddy from the melt. The horses worked hard, their breath steaming in the cold air. Elk Crossing was exactly what it sounded like. A crossing point for elk herds migrating through the territory. Someone had built a trading post, then a saloon, then houses. Now it was a town of maybe 200 people, small enough that everyone knew everyone, small enough that secrets did not stay secret long. They tied the horses outside the general store. Garrett helped Beth down from the wagon. Grace jumped down on her own landing in the mud with a splash. The moment they walked into the store, the talking stopped. Every person turned to look. The silence was thick enough to cut. Mrs. Crawford, the biggest gossip in town, was standing by the dry goods. She looked Beth up and down like she was examining a horse for purchase. "Well, if it is not the new Mrs. Stone." Beth met her gaze, did not look away, did not flinch. "Good morning, Mrs. Crawford. I heard you married Garrett in quite a hurry. 5 days after arriving, was it?" "5, but who is counting? People are talking, dear, saying it is suspicious, saying a woman does not marry a stranger that fast unless she is desperate." "I was desperate," Beth said. "Simple, honest. My daughter and I were dying in a blizzard. Garrett opened his door. I married him because he is a good man and because I needed protection from a husband who hurt my child. Is there anything else you would like to know? Mrs. Crawford's face went red. There is no need for rudeness. There is no need for gossip either. But here we are. Garrett hid a smile. Beth was holding her own. More than holding her own, she was winning. Mr. Patterson, who ran the sawmill, spoke up from the back of the store. Federal judge does not hunt his own wife for no reason, ma'am. Maybe you are lying. Maybe you did kidnap the girl. Grace stepped forward. She rolled up her sleeve before anyone could stop her. The burns were visible across the store. Small, round, deliberate. My father did this, Grace said. Her voice was clear, strong. Because I cried. Because I spilled milk. Because I existed. Is that reason enough? The store went silent. Mrs. Crawford's hand went to her mouth. Mr. Patterson looked away. The clerk behind the counter swore under his breath. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Dr. Henry Morrison stepped forward from where he had been examining medicines. He was in his 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been the town doctor for 20 years. May I see, he asked Grace. She looked at Beth. Beth nodded. Dr. Morrison knelt down and examined Grace's arms. He touched the scars gently. Professional. Clinical. When he stood up, his face was hard. These are cigarette burns, he said to the room. Deliberate, multiple incidents over time. This child was systematically abused. He looked at Mr. Patterson. Is that reason enough for you? Patterson had the decency to look ashamed. I did not know. Now you do. Dr. Morrison turned to Beth. Mrs. Stone, I will testify to this in Helena. I will document every burn, every scar, every injury, and I will tell Judge Beckett exactly what I think of a man who would do this to his own daughter. Beth's eyes filled. Thank you. No thanks needed. This is what decent people do. They bought their supplies and left. As they walked to the wagon, people watched from windows and doorways, some with sympathy, some with suspicion, but everyone was watching. Sheriff Crane met them outside. Heard what happened in there. Whole town will know by nightfall. Is that good or bad? Garrett asked. Depends. Some people will support you more now that they have seen proof. Others will think it is a trick, that you coach the girl to show old injuries. She is 6 years old, I know, but people believe what they want to believe, and some people wanted to believe a federal judge over a mail-order bride. Beth climbed into the wagon without a word. Her face was tight. Garrett could see her holding back tears, holding back rage, holding back the showed them. Are you? Beth asked. Yes, showed them. Are you? Beth asked. Yes, now they know. Now they cannot pretend it did not happen. They have to choose, believe a child or believe a judge. And if they choose the judge, Grace shrugged, then they are just like everyone else in Philadelphia. And we did not need them anyway. Garrett looked at this 6-year-old girl who talked like someone 3 times her age, who had learned the hardest lessons life could teach and somehow come out the other side still fighting. You are going to be all right, Grace, he said. I know. She leaned against her mother. I have Mama, and I have you. That night, while Beth and Grace slept, Garrett sat outside on the porch. The moon was rising, the stars were out. The temperature had dropped again, but not as low as before. Winter was definitely losing. He heard footsteps behind him. Beth came out, wrapped in a blanket. She sat down beside him without asking. Cannot sleep, he asked. Too much thinking. About the hearing. About everything. About how we got here, about what happens next. She paused. About you. What about me? You have given us everything. Your name, your protection, your home, and we have given you nothing but danger. You gave me a reason to keep the fire burning. That fire would have burned with or without us. Maybe, but it would have been for the wrong reasons. Beth pulled the blanket tighter. When this is over, when the hearing is done and Edmund is gone, what happens to us? What do you want to happen? I do not know. We married for protection, for the law, but it is starting to feel like more than that. Garrett looked at her, at the way the moonlight caught in her hair, at the strength in her face, at the woman who had dragged her daughter through a blizzard and married a stranger and stood up to the biggest gossip in Elk Crossing without flinching. It is more than that, he said, At least for me. Beth turned to face him. Garrett, I am not asking for anything. I am just telling you the truth. Somewhere between opening my door and watching you straighten my collar and listening to Grace call me by name, it stopped being an arrangement. It became something real. We have known each other less than 2 weeks. I know does not change how I feel. Beth was quiet for a long time. Then she reached over and took his hand. I am scared. Of Edmund. Of this. Of caring about you. Every time I cared about someone, Edmund destroyed them. Thomas is dead because he helped me. I cannot lose you too. You will not lose me. You do not know that. No, but I know I would rather fight beside you and lose than walk away and spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Beth leaned her head on his shoulder. You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. They sat like that until the cold drove them inside, until the fire called them back to warmth and safety and the small sanctuary they had built together. On the 11th day, everything changed. Garrett was in the barn checking the horses when he heard them. 6 riders, coming fast from the direction of Elk Crossing. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the door. The lead rider was on a chestnut mare, expensive horse, expensive saddle, expensive coat. The man himself was shorter than Garrett expected, compact, precise, every hair in place. His face was the kind of face people trusted, open, honest, the face of a man you would vote for, confess to, believe. Garrett had seen faces like that on the worst men at Gettysburg. Behind the lead rider came Marcus Flynn and 4 hired guns. They stopped in front of the ranch house, far enough to be cautious, close enough to be threatening. Garrett walked out into the yard, rifle in hand, finger off the trigger but ready. The lead rider dismounted, smooth, practiced. He smiled. The smile did not reach his eyes. Mr. Stone, I presume. I am Judge Edmund Hartwell. I believe you have something that belongs to me. His voice was cultured, educated, the voice of power and privilege, the voice of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. Get off my property, Garrett said. Edmund's smile widened. Come now. Is that any way to greet a guest? I have ridden a long way to have a conversation with my wife. Your former wife. She divorced you. Montana does not recognize that divorce. In the eyes of the law, Elizabeth is still Mrs. Hartwell, and Grace is still my daughter. The eyes of the law are changing. Judge Beckett issued a protection order. A territorial judge, Edmund waved his hand, dismissive. A provincial functionary with delusions of importance. His order will be overturned the moment I file my appeal. You can file all you want. Until then, the order stands. And you are trespassing. Edmund's mask slipped for half a second. Underneath was something cold and sharp. The real Edmund Hartwell, the one Beth knew, the one who burned his daughter's arms. I could have the U.S. Marshals here within a week, Edmund said. Helena hearing is in 4 days. See you there. You think you have won something. You think marrying my wife gives you some kind of power. Edmund stepped closer. His voice dropped. Quiet, deadly. I have destroyed bigger men than you. Crushed them. Buried them. You are a rancher in the middle of nowhere. I am a federal judge with connections that reach to Washington. You cannot win this fight. Garrett shifted his grip on the rifle. You are still on my property. Leave. Elizabeth, Edmund raised his voice, shouting toward the house. I know you are listening. Come out here and face me like an adult instead of hiding behind your cowboy. Beth appeared in the doorway. Grace was behind her, peeking around her mother's skirt. Edmund's whole demeanor changed. His face softened. His voice gentled. The mask was back. Perfect. Seamless. Elizabeth, my dear, you look well. Better than I expected after your ordeal. I am not your dear, and my only ordeal was being married to you. You are confused, ill. You need help. I needed help 7 years ago when you broke my wrist. I needed help when you burned our daughter. I needed help and no one came. So I helped myself. Edmund's eyes went to Grace. Hello, Grace. Papa has missed you terribly. Grace said nothing. She pressed closer to Beth. Grace is my heir, Edmund said. His voice was still gentle, but there was steel underneath. My daughter, my fortune. You think you can steal $500,000 from me? You think I will let you? So Edmund knew Beth had told him about the inheritance. He knew, and he was here anyway, confident, arrogant, sure of his victory. Grace is not your property, Beth said, and the money means nothing to me. I would burn every dollar if it meant keeping her safe from you. You always were dramatic. Edmund turned to Garrett. Let me be clear, Mr. Stone. I will get my daughter back. If not today, then next week. If not through the courts, then through other means. And when I do, I will make sure everyone who helped her disappear suffers. Your ranch will burn, your name will be destroyed. You will wish you had never opened your door. Garrett raised the rifle, not aiming, not yet, just raising it enough to make a point. I killed 47 men at Gettysburg, with a bayonet, close enough to smell their fear. You want to be number 48. Edmund went pale. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in his eyes. He was used to threatening people with legal consequences, with social ruin. He was not used to men who could kill him with their hands. That is a threat, Edmund said. That is a fact. Now get off my land before I decide talking is over. Edmund stepped back. His men moved their hands toward their guns. Garrett's rifle came up smooth and fast, aimed at Edmund's chest. Tell your boys if they draw, you die first. Then them, then Marcus. I can get all 6 shots off before any of you clear leather. Want to test me? Edmund raised his hand. His men froze. Marcus looked torn, like he wanted to do something but could not decide what. This is not over, Edmund said. Never thought it was. Edmund mounted his horse. He looked at Beth one more time. I will see you in Helena, Elizabeth, and I will take back what is mine. Then he rode away, 6 dark shapes disappearing down the trail. But Garrett knew they would not go far. Knew Edmund would not leave Montana, not when he was this close, not when $500,000 was on the line. Beth collapsed against the door frame the moment they were out of sight. Her whole body was shaking. Not from cold, from adrenaline and fear and the reality of seeing Edmund again after months of running. Garrett went to her, put his arms around her. She buried her face in his chest and held on. He found us, she whispered. He always finds us. He found us, but he left empty-handed. That is different. He will come back. I know, and we will be ready. Grace was standing in the doorway, silent. Her face was white. Her hands were clenched at her sides. Grace, Garrett knelt down. Are you all right? No. Her voice was small. I thought I was ready to see him again. I thought I was strong enough. But I am not. I am still scared. Being scared is all right. You were not scared. I was terrified. I just did not show it. Grace looked at him. Really, really, fear is what keeps us alive. It makes us careful, makes us smart. The trick is not letting fear stop you from doing what needs to be done. Beth pulled Grace into the hug. The 3 of them stood in the doorway holding each other while the sun climbed higher and the temperature rose, and spring continued its slow march north. That night, Garrett found Marcus Flynn sitting outside the saloon in Elk Crossing, alone. Drinking, Garrett sat down across from him without asking. Marcus looked up. Come to kill me. Come to talk. About what? About you, about Edmund, about what happens next. Marcus took a long drink. What happens next is Edmund gets his daughter and you get buried. That is how this story ends. Does it have to? You saw him today. You think a man like that gives up. I think a man like that relies on other men to do his dirty work. Men like you. Marcus's jaw tightened. I am just doing my job. You have been saying that since the beginning. But you do not believe it anymore, do you? What I believe does not matter. Garrett leaned forward. You have a daughter, Sarah, 7 years old, rheumatic fever. Marcus went still. How do you know that? I saw you writing her a letter. Window was open. You were spying on me. I was observing a man doing evil for good reasons. Marcus stood up. I am done talking. Sarah asked you what you do for money. What do you tell her? The question stopped Marcus cold. He stood there halfway between sitting and walking away, caught between 2 truths. I tell her I help people, Marcus said finally. And is that true? Or are you helping people by dragging a 6-year-old back to a man who burns her with cigarettes? Judge Hartwell was cleared of those charges. By his friends, by judges who cover for each other. You know the truth, Marcus. You saw those burns on Grace's arms. You know what Edmund is. Marcus sat back down, slow, defeated. What do you want from me? I want you to testify in Helena. I want you to tell Judge Beckett what Edmund really is, what he has done, what he has ordered you to do. He will kill me. He will kill you anyway. Men like Edmund do not leave witnesses. The moment you are no longer useful, you become a liability. Marcus was quiet. He stared at his drink, at the amber liquid that promised escape but delivered only temporary numbness. I have Sarah's medical bills, Marcus said. $200. The doctor says if I do not pay soon, he will stop treating her. I will pay them, all of them, on my honor. Marcus looked up. Why? Because if my son was alive and sick, I would hope someone would do the same for me. Because doing the right thing should not cost a man his child. And if I testify Edmund goes to prison, if you testify and we show Judge Beckett the truth, yes, Edmund goes to prison, Grace stays safe, and Sarah gets her father back eventually. Eventually, after I serve time for killing Thomas Fenton. Garrett did not lie to him. Yes, you will face consequences, but you will face them knowing you did the right thing in the end, that you saved a child, that you were brave enough to turn against a monster. Marcus finished his drink, set the glass down, looked Garrett in the eye. I have copies of Edmund's letters. My own insurance. He does not know I kept them. You kept copies. I am not stupid. Edmund is dangerous. I needed leverage. Will you testify? Marcus was quiet for a long time. So long, Garrett thought he would say no. Then Marcus nodded. Once. Sharp. I will testify, but I need protection after. Edmund has friends everywhere. Sheriff Crane can arrange that. And you will pay Sarah's bills, even if this goes bad. I promise. Marcus extended his hand. Garrett shook it. The deal was made. 2 nights later, Marcus Flynn did not show up for the meeting Garrett had arranged with Sheriff Crane. They found him in his hotel room, beaten unconscious, ribs broken, face swollen, blood everywhere. Dr. Morrison worked on him for 3 hours. When he finally came out of the room, his face was grim. He will live. Ribs are cracked, not broken clean through. He can travel if he has to, but it will hurt like hell. 3 or 4 days if he is desperate enough. Can he testify? Garrett asked. If someone gets him to Helena and props him up in front of the judge, yes. But it will cost him. Every word will hurt. Beth sank into a chair. Edmund did this. He knew Marcus was going to betray him. Edmund or his men, Sheriff Crane said. I found 2 of them leaving town this morning. By the time I got back to question them, they were gone. Did they take the evidence? Garrett asked. Marcus's copies of the letters. Crane nodded. Room was torn apart. If he had papers hidden, they found them. Beth looked at Garrett. We still have my originals, the ones I kept from Philadelphia. Edmund will claim you forged them. Then we get a handwriting expert. We prove they are real. That takes time. The hearing is in 4 days. Beth stood up. Then we go to Helena and we fight with what we have. Dr. Morrison's testimony, the burns on Grace's arms. My testimony about what Edmund did. It has to be enough. And if it is not, Beth's voice was steel, then we run again. But we do not give up. We do not let him win. The next morning they left for Helena. 3-day journey. Garrett drove the wagon. Beth sat beside him with Grace between them. Ruth and Reverend Bishop followed in a second wagon. Sheriff Crane rode alongside with 2 deputies who would bring Marcus when he was strong enough to move. Grace had not spoken since they found Marcus. She sat in the wagon bed, drawing with charcoal on pieces of wood. Not houses with screaming faces anymore. Now she drew weapons, bows, arrows, knives, things that could protect, things that could fight back. On the second night, they made camp beside a frozen stream. Garrett built a fire. Beth made coffee. Grace practiced with her bow shooting at trees until the light failed. When Grace finally fell asleep in the wagon, Beth sat beside Garrett at the fire. We are going to lose, she said. Quiet, defeated. Edmund has money, power, connections. Marcus was our best witness, and he is barely alive. What do we have? We have the truth. The truth has never been enough before. Garrett took her hand. We have more than the truth. We have Dr. Morrison. We have Sheriff Crane. We have Ruth and Bishop. We have a territorial judge who hates federal judges who abuse their power. We have Grace, who is brave enough to show her scars to a courtroom full of strangers. And we have Marcus, who will crawl to that courtroom if he has to, because he wants his daughter to know he did one good thing. And we have you, Beth said softly, and you have me. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, her body pressed against his side. I am glad Grace dragged me to your door. Even if this all goes wrong, even if we lose, I am glad I met you. We are not going to lose. But if we do, Garrett turned to face her. He put his hand on her cheek. If we lose, we run, all three of us. We go somewhere Edmund cannot find us. Canada, maybe, or deeper into the territories. But we stay together, as a family. You, me, Grace, and this baby you are carrying. You would do that? Give up your ranch, your life here. The ranch is just land. You and Grace and this baby are family. And I already lost one family. I am not losing another. Beth's eyes filled. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. Not gentle, not careful, deep and desperate, and full of everything she had been holding back. Garrett pulled her closer, his hand in her hair, her hands on his chest, the fire crackling beside them. The stars overhead, the whole world reduced to this moment, this kiss, this woman who had walked into his life and changed everything. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. I love you, Beth whispered. I did not mean to. I tried not to, but I do. I love you too. Have since the moment you straightened my collar. She laughed, broken, beautiful. We are either very brave or completely insane. Probably both. They heard a sound from the wagon, looked over. Grace was sitting up, watching them with wide eyes. I saw that, Grace said. Go back to sleep, Grace. Well, does this mean you love each other? Garrett and Beth looked at each other. Then together they said, yes. Grace smiled. Good, because I love both of you too. She paused. Can I call you Dad now instead of Garrett? Garrett's throat closed. He could not speak, could only nod. Okay. Good night, Dad. Good night, Mama. She lay back down, pulled the blanket over herself, left Garrett and Beth sitting by the fire with tears on their faces and hope in their hearts and the knowledge that no matter what happened in Helena, they had this moment, this family, this love that had grown in the frozen soil of grief and blossomed into something neither of them expected. The next day they reached Helena, the territorial capital, bigger than Elk Crossing, brick buildings, paved streets, a courthouse 3 stories tall with columns out front. Grace stared at it. That is where we fight Papa. That is where we tell the truth, Beth said. And we let Judge Beckett decide. They took rooms at a hotel near the courthouse. That night, Beth and Garrett sat up late going over their testimony, preparing, planning, knowing that tomorrow would determine everything. Are you ready? Garrett asked. Beth looked at Grace sleeping in the next bed, at her daughter who had survived so much, who deserved so much better. I have to be, Beth said, for her, for this baby, for all of us. For all of us. They held each other through the night, waiting for dawn, waiting for the fight, waiting for justice or defeat or something in between. Outside the city slept. Tomorrow the world would change, for better or for worse. Tomorrow they would face Edmund Hartwell in a courtroom. Tomorrow they would learn if the truth was enough, if love was enough, if 3 people who had found each other in a blizzard could stand against a federal judge and win. Tomorrow. The Helena courthouse was packed. Word had spread through the territory. A federal judge from Philadelphia hunting his own wife and daughter, a rancher who had married the woman in 5 days, a child with cigarette burns on her arms. People came from 50 miles around to watch. Garrett sat in the front row with Ruth and Sheriff Crane. Beth sat at the plaintiff's table with their lawyer, James Porter. Grace sat between them, small and silent, wearing a new dress Ruth had bought her. The wooden horse Garrett had carved was in her pocket. She kept touching it through the fabric, making sure it was still there. Judge William Beckett entered through the back door, 70 years old with white hair and a face carved by 4 decades of listening to people lie to him. He had learned to tell the difference between truth and performance, between justice and law. They were not always the same thing. He took his seat, looked out at the gallery, at the crowd that had come to watch. Then he looked at the 2 tables, at Beth and her lawyer on one side, at Edmund Hartwell and his lawyer, Chester Whitmore, on the other. This court is convened to hear the matter of custody regarding the minor child, Grace Elizabeth Hartwell. Beckett's voice carried through the room, deep, measured, the voice of a man who had seen everything and was tired of human ugliness, but kept showing up anyway because someone had to. Mrs. Stone, you are the respondent to Judge Hartwell's petition for custody. I am, Your Honor. Beth's voice was steady. Garrett felt pride swell in his chest. This woman who had been beaten down and told she was crazy and chased across half a country was standing up in a courtroom and claiming her right to protect her daughter. Mr. Stone, you are the child's stepfather. Garrett stood. I am, Your Honor. Very well. Mr. Whitmore, you may present your case. Chester Whitmore stood. Expensive suit, polished shoes, the kind of lawyer who charged more per hour than most men made in a month. He was good. Garrett could see it in the way he moved, the way he commanded the room, the way he made Edmund look like a victim instead of a monster. Your Honor, this is a simple case. A loving father seeks the return of his daughter, who was taken from him by a mentally unstable wife. We will demonstrate through testimony and evidence that Elizabeth Hartwell suffers from severe delusions, that she has poisoned the child against her father, and that Judge Hartwell is the victim of a vindictive woman who cannot accept the authority of a husband and father. Whitmore produced witnesses. A church deacon from Philadelphia who testified that Edmund was generous and kind. A colleague who said Edmund was devoted to his work and his family. A psychiatrist who had examined Beth years ago and found her prone to hysteria and emotional instability. Porter cross-examined each one. The same questions, over and over. Have you ever been alone with Grace in the Hartwell home? No. Have you ever seen the marks on her arms? No. So your testimony is based entirely on public appearances, on the face Judge Hartwell shows the world. Judge Hartwell is the same man in public and in private. That, Porter said quietly, is exactly what Mrs. Stone is afraid of. The morning wore on, witness after witness painting Edmund as a saint, as a man wronged, as a father desperate to recover his stolen daughter. Grace sat through it all, silent, her face empty. She had learned long ago to go somewhere else when the world became too much, to retreat inside herself where no one could reach her, where she was safe. At noon, Beckett called a recess. They ate lunch at the hotel. Grace did not touch her food. Are you all right? Beth asked. They are lying, all of them. They do not know what Papa is really like. I know, baby. But this afternoon we get to tell the truth. Dr. Morrison will testify, and then you and I will tell Judge Beckett everything. What if he does not believe us? Then we tried. That is all anyone can do. But Grace's eyes said she had heard that before, had believed it before, and it had never been true. That afternoon, Porter called Dr. Morrison to the stand. The doctor was nervous. He was a small-town physician, not used to territorial courtrooms and federal judges and lawyers who could tear apart testimony with a single question. But he told the truth. Simple, direct, clear. I examined Grace Stone 2 weeks ago. She has approximately 30 circular burns on both arms. The burns are consistent with cigarette contact. They are at various stages of healing, indicating multiple incidents over an extended period. In my professional opinion, these burns were deliberately inflicted. This child was systematically abused. Whitmore's cross-examination was brutal. He attacked Morrison's credentials, questioned his expertise, suggested that the burns could have been accidental, that children hurt themselves all the time, that a small-town doctor was not qualified to make determinations about abuse. Morrison held his ground. I have been a doctor for 25 years. I know the difference between an accident and deliberate harm. These burns were not accidental. And yet you have no proof, no witnesses, just your interpretation of scars that could have come from anywhere. They came from Judge Hartwell's cigarettes, and Grace will tell you herself if you ask her. Whitmore smiled. Oh, we will ask her, and we will see if a 6-year-old child who has been coached by her mother, can be trusted to tell the truth. Porter stood. Objection. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Mr. Whitmore, save your arguments for closing. The doctor stepped down. Beth was called next. She walked to the stand like she was walking to the gallows. Every step measured, controlled. She sat down and placed her hands in her lap and looked at Porter. Mrs. Stone, please describe your marriage to Edmund Hartwell. Beth took a breath. Then she began. I married Edmund 7 years ago. I was 22, he was 38, a federal judge. Everyone said I was lucky, that I had caught a good man. Her voice was steady, flat, like she was reading from a script she had memorized. He hit me for the first time 6 months after the wedding. I questioned his decision about money we were spending. He slapped me hard enough to knock me down. Then he cried and apologized and swore it would never happen again. Did it happen again? It happened once a month, then once a week, then whenever he felt I had disrespected him, which was often. Beth's hands tightened in her lap. In year 2, he broke my wrist, told the doctor I had fallen. In year 3, he dislocated my shoulder and cracked 3 ribs. Same story, clumsy wife. The doctors believed him because he was a federal judge, and I was just a woman who could not seem to stay on her feet. When did the abuse turn to Grace? She was 3 years old. I was bathing her, and I saw a small burn on her left forearm. Round, perfect circle. When I asked her about it, she said Papa did it. That she had been crying, and he told her to stop, and she could not, and he burned her to teach her that crying was weakness. Beth's voice cracked, just slightly, just enough to show the wall was not as strong as she pretended. I confronted Edmund that night. He broke 3 of my ribs and told me that if I ever questioned his methods of discipline again, he would have me committed to an asylum. And he could do it. He had the power, the connections. One signature, and I would disappear, and Grace would be alone with him. Why did you not go to the police? I did, in Philadelphia. They sent an officer to our home. Edmund met him at the door. They talked for 20 minutes, man to man, judge to policeman. The officer left. That night, Edmund broke 3 of my fingers and told me if I ever called the police again, he would kill me and make it look like an accident. The courtroom was silent. You could hear people breathing, hear the scratch of a reporter's pen on paper, hear the clock on the wall ticking away seconds. What made you finally leave? I found letters in his desk. Edmund was not careful. He thought I was too stupid or too scared to look. But I looked, and I found 8 letters he had written to Marcus Flynn, his private investigator. Instructions to kill a man named Thomas Fenton, who had helped us in St. Louis. Instructions to bring me back in a coffin if necessary. Instructions to make Grace compliant through any means required. Do you have these letters? Yes, I took them the night I fled. They are the only proof I have that what I am saying is true. Porter nodded to Sheriff Crane. The sheriff stood and brought a small leather case to the stand. Porter opened it and removed 8 letters. Old paper, folded many times, worn from being carried across half a country. Your Honor, I would like to enter these letters into evidence. Whitmore was on his feet. Objection. Those letters are forgeries. Mrs. Hartwell stole letterhead from my client's office and fabricated evidence to support her false narrative. Your Honor, Porter said, we have a handwriting expert's report showing these letters match samples of Judge Hartwell's handwriting from court documents filed in Philadelphia. The ink matches the type used in his chambers. The postmarks are from Philadelphia and match the dates Mrs. Stone claims these events occurred. Beckett examined the letters, read each one carefully. His face did not change, but his eyes got harder with each page. I will allow the letters into evidence, Beckett said. The court will determine their authenticity based on all available information. Continue, Mr. Porter. Whitmore's cross-examination was exactly what Garrett expected. Vicious, personal, designed to make Beth look unstable. Mrs. Stone, you fled across the country with no plan and no money. Does that sound like rational behavior? It sounds like a desperate mother protecting her child. You married Mr. Stone after knowing him for 5 days. Were you using him for legal protection? I married a man who showed me kindness when I was dying, who opened his door in a blizzard, who has protected my daughter better than anyone in Philadelphia ever did. You are pregnant, are you not, Mrs. Stone? Beth's hand went to her stomach. Yes. Who is the father, my husband, Garrett Stone? Conceived before your marriage to Mr. Stone. Yes, but this child will be born a stone and raised a stone. That is what matters. Whitmore's eyes gleamed. So you were pregnant with another man's child when you married Mr. Stone. Convenient timing. Porter stood. Objection, Mrs. Stone's pregnancy is not relevant to the custody matter. It speaks to her character, Your Honor. Her desperation. Overruled, but make your point quickly, Mr. Whitmore. Whitmore turned back to Beth. Whose child is it, really, Mrs. Stone? Beth met his gaze. Did not flinch. It is Edmund Hartwell's biological child, conceived before I fled Philadelphia. But Garrett Stone is this baby's father in every way that matters. He will raise this child with love and kindness. He will never lay a hand on this child in anger. He will be the father Edmund could never be. The courtroom rippled. Whispers. Murmurs. Beckett banged his gavel once. Silence fell. Whitmore tried again and again, but Beth held. She did not break, did not contradict herself, did not give him the opening he needed to paint her as a liar or a hysteric or a woman scorned. When she stepped down, she was shaking. But she had done it. She had told her story. She had stood up to one of the best lawyers money could buy, and she had survived. Porter called his next witness. The defense calls Grace Elizabeth Hartwell to the stand. The courtroom went silent. Every eye turned to the small girl sitting between her mother and stepfather. Grace stood up, slow, deliberate. She walked to the witness stand like she was walking into battle, like she knew this was the moment everything would be decided. The bailiff brought a box for her to stand on so she could be seen over the edge of the witness box. Grace climbed up. Her feet still did not quite touch the floor. She held onto the wooden horse in her pocket with one hand. Porter approached gently. Can you tell the court your full name, Grace Elizabeth Hartwell? Her voice was small but clear, steady. She had practiced this. Garrett had made her practice until she could say it without shaking. Grace, do you know why you are here today? Yes, because my father wants to take me back to Philadelphia, and my mother does not want him to. Why does your mother not want you to go back? Grace looked at Edmund. He was sitting at the defense table, watching her with the face he showed the world. Warm, concerned, fatherly. The mask he wore so well that even now, even here, people would look at him and think he was the victim. Because he hurt me, Grace said, and he will hurt me again if I go back. How did he hurt you? Grace's hand tightened on the wooden horse. He burned me with his cigarettes, on my arms, many times. Why did he do this? Because I cried, because I spilled milk, because I did not stand straight enough, because I looked at him wrong, because I was bad. Did you think you were bad? I thought I must be, because Papa said so. And parents do not lie. Everyone knows that. Porter knelt down so he was at her eye level. Grace, can you show the court what your father did to you? Grace looked at Beth. Beth nodded, encouraging, supporting, telling her daughter without words that it was safe, that she could do this. Grace set the wooden horse on the edge of the witness box. She reached up and pulled off her left glove, then her right. She rolled up her left sleeve, slowly, methodically, then her right. The burns were visible from the back of the courtroom. Dozens of them, small, round, evenly spaced, running from her wrist to her elbows like some terrible bracelet. Some were old scars white against her skin. Some were newer, still pink, still healing. A woman in the gallery gasped. A man swore. Someone started crying. Judge Beckett leaned forward. His face was stone, but his eyes were burning with something that might have been rage, or might have been grief, or might have been both. Dear God, someone whispered. Grace stood there with her arms out, showing the courtroom what her father had done, what he had hidden behind closed doors and expensive suits in the respect that came with being a federal judge. Grace, Porter said gently, what is that you were holding? Grace picked up the wooden horse. A horse. My father, Garrett, made it for me. Your father. My stepfather. But he is more of a father than my real father ever was. Why did he make you a horse? So I would have something that nobody could take away. Something that was mine. Something good. Is Garrett a good man? Grace looked across the courtroom at Garrett, At this man who had opened his door in a blizzard, who had taught her to shoot a bow, who had carried her inside when she was too scared to walk, who had promised to protect her and had kept that promise every single day. He is trying to be, Grace said, and that is more than anyone else ever did. Whitmore stood for cross-examination. He looked at Grace, at her small frame and her old eyes and the burns that covered both arms. He looked at the gallery full of people staring at him with disgust. He looked at Judge Beckett, whose face had gone hard as granite. No questions, Your Honor. Even he could not do it. Even a lawyer paid a fortune to defend Edmund Hartwell could not bring himself to cross-examine a 6-year-old child about the scars her father had left on her body. Grace stepped down. She walked straight to Garrett and climbed into his lap. He held her while she shook, while the adrenaline wore off and the fear caught up, while she realized what she had just done. "You did good," Garrett whispered. "You were so brave." "Is it over?" "Almost." Porter presented the letters into evidence. Read them aloud to the court. Every word, every instruction: to kill, to intimidate, to break. The courtroom listened in horrified silence. When he finished, Whitmore stood. "Your Honor, as I stated before, these letters are obvious forgeries. Mrs. Hartwell had access to her husband's letterhead in his office. She could have easily created these documents to support her false claims." "We have expert testimony," Porter said, "from a handwriting analyst you hired. Hardly objective." Beckett looked at the letters. "I am inclined to agree that authenticity is questionable without additional corroboration." Porter's face fell. Without the letters, without Marcus Flynn's testimony, they had Beth's word against Edmund's. And in a court of law, a federal judge's word carried more weight than a wife accused of kidnapping. They were losing. The courtroom door opened. Every head turned. 2 territorial marshals entered, supporting a man between them. Tall, lean, bandaged, limping. His face was a mass of bruises. One eye was swollen shut. His ribs were wrapped. His left arm was in a sling. "Marcus Flynn." Beth stood up. "Marcus." Garrett's hand went into his pistol, but Marcus held up his free hand, peaceful, surrendering. "Your Honor," Marcus said. His voice was rough, damaged, like speaking hurt. Every word an effort. "I am Marcus Flynn, private investigator. I work for Judge Edmund Hartwell, and I need to testify." Beckett studied him. "You are in no condition to testify, Mr. Flynn. You can barely stand." "I am in exactly the right condition to testify because the condition I am in was caused by Judge Hartwell's men when they learned I was planning to tell you the truth." The courtroom erupted. Beckett banged his gavel. "Order, order in this court." He looked at Marcus. "Mr. Flynn, do you understand you are under no obligation to testify that anything you say can be used against you in criminal proceedings?" "I understand, Your Honor, and I am ready to tell you everything." The marshals helped Marcus to the stand. He sat down heavily, wincing. Every movement brought pain, but he was there. Porter approached. "Mr. Flynn, please state your relationship to Judge Edmund Hartwell." "I have worked for Judge Hartwell for 5 years as a private investigator. He hired me to locate his wife and daughter after they fled Philadelphia. He told me Elizabeth had kidnapped Grace, that she was mentally unstable, that he had a legal custody order. I believed him." "When did you stop believing him?" Marcus looked at Grace, at the burns on her arms. "When I saw what he had done to that little girl, when I realized I had been helping a monster retrieve his victim." "Did Judge Hartwell send you instructions regarding Elizabeth and Grace?" "Yes, multiple letters over the course of 3 years, instructions to locate them, to intimidate anyone helping them, to eliminate obstacles." "By eliminate, do you mean kill?" Marcus's voice dropped. "Yes, I killed Thomas Fenton in St. Louis on Judge Hartwell's orders. Made it look like an accidental drowning. I will spend the rest of my life in prison for that. But that little girl deserves better than I gave her. She deserves the truth." "Do you have copies of Judge Hartwell's letters?" "I did. I kept copies as insurance. Judge Hartwell's men beat me 3 days ago and stole them. But I can verify that the letters Mrs. Stone has are genuine. That is Judge Hartwell's handwriting. Those are his orders. Those are his words." Whitmore jumped up. "Objection. This witness is a confessed murderer. His testimony is worthless." "Your Honor," Porter said, "Mr. Flynn has everything to lose by testifying. He is admitting to murder. He will face criminal charges. He has no reason to lie. Beckett looked at Marcus. Why should I believe you, Mr. Flynn? You admit you have committed murder. You admit you have lied for 5 years. Why should I trust anything you say now? Marcus met his gaze, pain etched in every line of his face. Because I have a daughter, Sarah. She is 7 years old. She has been asking me what I do for work, and I have been lying to her, telling her I help people. But I do not help people. I hurt them. I killed a good man. I terrorized a woman and child. And when Sarah is old enough to understand what I really did, I want to be able to tell her that at the end, when it mattered most, I told the truth. I did the right thing, even though it cost me everything. The courtroom was silent. Beckett was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Continue. Marcus testified for an hour, every detail, every letter, every instruction, every crime he had committed on Edmund Hartwell's orders. He did not spare himself, did not make excuses, just told the truth. And every word hurt. You could see it in his face, in the way he winced, in the pauses he took to breathe through the pain. When Whitmore tried to cross-examine, Marcus cut him off. I am going to prison. Nothing you say changes that. But Judge Hartwell is going to prison too. Because that child deserves justice, and I am going to make sure she gets it. Marcus stepped down. The marshals helped him to a seat in the back. He sat with his head bowed, finished, broken, but free in a way he had not been in 5 years. Porter rested his case. Whitmore called Edmund to the stand. Edmund walked to the witness box like he was walking to a podium, confident, assured. The man who had convinced a courtroom full of people that he was the victim, that his wife was crazy, that his daughter was manipulated. He sat down, straightened his collar, looked at the judge with respect and deference. Whitmore began, gentle questions, easy answers, painting Edmund as a devoted father, a respected jurist, a man who had been wronged by a vindictive wife. Then Porter stood for cross-examination. Judge Hartwell, can you explain the burns on your daughter's arms? Children injure themselves all the time. Grace was always clumsy, always getting hurt. The 30 identical circular burns are not clumsiness. They are deliberate. I disagree. Did you burn your daughter with cigarettes? Absolutely not. Did you instruct Marcus Flynn to kill Thomas Fenton? No, Mr. Flynn is a liar trying to save himself. Did you write the letters Mrs. Stone presented as evidence? No, she forged them. Porter walked to the evidence table, picked up the letters. Your Honor, I would like to read from one of these letters. Quote, my father taught me discipline through pain. I will teach Grace the same. When she cries, she must learn there are consequences. Use the cigarette. Use whatever is necessary. Make her strong, end quote. Edmund's face went white. I did not write that. Then explain this, Judge Hartwell. Why does this letter reference your father's methods? Why does it mention making Grace strong? Those are very specific details for a forgery. Elizabeth heard me talk about my childhood. She used that information to make the letters seem authentic. Or you wrote them, and you are lying now to save yourself. Edmund stood up. I am a federal judge. I do not lie. Sit down, Judge Hartwell, Beckett said. His voice was ice. I will not be spoken to like this. I will not be accused of crimes I did not commit by some backwater lawyer and a murdering detective and a hysterical woman. Sit down or I will hold you in contempt. Edmund did not sit down. Instead, he turned to face the courtroom, to face Beth and Grace and Garrett. His mask was cracking. The charming federal judge was disappearing. What was underneath was cold and sharp and absolutely without mercy. That child is mine, Edmund said. His voice was rising, getting louder. My property, my heir. Do you know what she is worth? $500,000. $500,000. When she turns 18, if she is under my guardianship, I control that fortune. I built my entire life around that money. And you think some territorial judge in the middle of nowhere can take it from me? Judge Hartwell, Beckett said. His voice was sharp, warning, but Edmund was past hearing, past caring. The rage he had kept buried for years was pouring out. I made her better. She was weak, crying all the time. Pathetic. My father made me strong. I made her strong. And you call that abuse? You call that a crime? He pointed at Beth. You ruined her. You made her disobedient. You poisoned her against me. He pointed at Garrett. And you. You think you can have my fortune. You think marrying my wife gives you rights to my daughter's money. Your daughter, Garrett said quietly, has a name, Grace. And she is not worth $500,000. She is worth everything. Edmund's face twisted. She is mine. The money is mine. I am a federal judge. You are nobody. Beckett was on his feet. Bailiff restrained the witness. Two bailiffs moved toward Edmund. He backed away, still shouting. I will appeal. I will take this to every court in America. I will have every judge review this travesty. You cannot do this. I have power. I have connections. I have everything. The bailiffs grabbed him. Edmund fought, actually fought, swinging, kicking, screaming. The mask was completely gone now. All that was left was a man who had built his life on control and was watching it crumble. She is my property, he screamed. Mine. They dragged him out. His voice echoed through the courthouse until the doors closed. Then silence. Beckett sat down. He removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly. The courtroom waited, every person holding their breath. In 40 years on this bench, Beckett said, I have seen cruelty dressed as law. I have seen power corrupt. I have seen evil hide behind respectability. But I have never seen anything like this. He looked at Edmund's empty chair, then at Grace, then at Beth. I have made my decision. The courtroom leaned forward. The petition for custody is denied. Full custody of Grace Elizabeth Hartwell is granted to her mother, Elizabeth Stone, and her stepfather, Garrett Stone. Beth made a sound, half sob, half laugh. Garrett's hand found hers, squeezed. Furthermore, Beckett continued, I am issuing a warrant for the arrest of Edmund Hartwell on charges of child abuse, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. He will be remanded to territorial custody pending federal trial. He banged his gavel. This court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted, people standing, talking, shouting. Grace climbed down from her chair and ran, past the railing, past the lawyers, past everyone until she reached Garrett and Beth. We won, she said. We won. Garrett picked her up. Beth's arms went around both of them. They held each other while the courtroom celebrated around them, while Ruth cried, while Sheriff Crane shook Porter's hand. While reporters scrambled for the door to file their stories, Marcus approached, slow, limping, supported by the marshals. Mrs. Stone, Mr. Stone, Grace. They turned. Garrett tensed, but Marcus held up his hand. I just wanted to say I am sorry for everything, for Thomas, for hunting you, for being part of this nightmare. You told the truth when it mattered, Beth said. Thank you. My daughter, Sarah, will you tell her I did one good thing when she is old enough to understand? We will tell her you saved us, Grace said. We will tell her you were brave. Marcus's eyes filled. He nodded once, then Sheriff Crane was there with him handcuffs. Marcus held out his wrists without resistance. Marcus Flynn, you are under arrest for the murder of Thomas Fenton. I know. I am ready. They led him away. But before he left, Marcus looked back at Grace one more time. Be brave, little one. You are braver than I ever was. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. Spring had finally arrived. The snow was gone. Green was pushing up through brown earth. The world was coming back to life. They took rooms at the hotel for one more night. Tomorrow they would start the journey back to Stone Creek Ranch, back home. That evening, after Grace fell asleep, Beth and Garrett sat by the window looking out at the city. It is over, Beth said, really over. Edmund will appeal. Let him. Beckett's ruling stands until then, and with Marcus's testimony and the letters and Grace's scars, no judge will overturn it. He will go to prison. Good, he deserves worse. They were quiet for a moment, then Beth turned to face Garrett. What happens now to us? What do you want to happen? I want to go home, to the ranch. I want to watch Grace grow up somewhere safe. I want to have this baby. She put her hand on her belly. I want to build a life with you, a real life, not an arrangement, not a marriage of convenience, a real marriage. Ooh, Garrett pulled her close. That is what I want too. Are you sure? Because I come with a lot of complications. A daughter who has nightmares. A baby on the way that is not yours by blood. An ex-husband who will hate you forever. I survived Gettysburg. I buried my first family. I spent 6 years wishing I was dead. I think I can handle complications. Beth laughed. Then she kissed him. Deep, real, the kiss of a woman who was finally free, who was finally safe, who was finally home. When they pulled apart, Garrett said, "I love you, Elizabeth Stone. I love you too, even though you always have soot on your collar. Some things never change." "No, but some things do, and that is okay." They held each other while the city settled into evening, while the sun set, while somewhere in a territorial jail, Edmund Hartwell sat in a cell and realized he had lost everything. While somewhere in another cell, Marcus Flynn wrote a letter to his daughter telling her he was sorry, but he had finally done the right thing. And in a hotel room in Helena, a family that had been born in a blizzard held each other and dreamed of spring. 1 year later, Garrett Stone stood on the hill behind his ranch house looking at two wooden crosses. The names were carved deep. Rachel Stone, Daniel Stone. The graves were covered in wildflowers. Beth had planted them every spring since their wedding. He knelt down, touched the earth. "She laughs loud, Rachel, louder than you even. Burns half of what she cooks too. Wind through the grass, birds singing, the sound of life. And the baby, little Daniel. We named him after our son, after yours and mine both. He is 9 months old now, already trying to walk. Stubborn, just like you were." Pause. "Beth says he has your smile, that crooked grin, and when he laughs, it sounds just like our Daniel did." Grace is 7 now, almost 8, reading full books. Can shoot a bow better than most grown men. She still has nightmares sometimes, but they are getting quieter. She is getting stronger. He sat back on his heels. "I did not think I would feel this again. Love, family, purpose. I thought I used up my share when you died. But Beth says everyone deserves second chances if they are brave enough to take them." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of grass and flowers in Montana spring. "I love them, Rachel, and I love you. Both things are true. I am not letting go of you. I am just making room for more." He stood, looked at the graves one more time. Then he turned and walked back toward the ranch house. Through the window, he could see Beth at the stove. She was burning something. Again. Smoke was rising from a pan. She was laughing, waving a towel at the smoke. Grace was beside her, holding 9-month-old Daniel on her hip. The boy was giggling, reaching for his sister's hair. The fire was burning in the hearth. It had never gone out, but it did not burn for grief anymore. It burned for warmth, for light, for the people who needed it. Garrett reached the porch, stopped, looked back at the Montana landscape. Vast, beautiful, unforgiving. The land that had taken everything from him and then given it back in a form he never expected. He opened the door, stepped inside. "You are late," Beth said. She kissed him. Quick, domestic. The kiss of a wife who knew her husband would always come back. "Dinner is almost ready." "Is it edible?" "Absolutely not, but you will eat it anyway and tell me it is delicious." "I always do." Grace handed him Daniel. The boy grabbed Garrett's beard and pulled. Hard. Garrett laughed. The sound filled the house. Warm, real, the sound of a man who had learned to live again. "Papa," Daniel said, his first word. They had been waiting for it for weeks. Garrett froze, looked at Beth, at Grace, back at the baby. "Did he just—" "Papa," Daniel said again, delighted with himself. "Papa, Papa, Papa." Grace threw her arms around Garrett's neck. He said it, his first word. Beth was crying, happy tears. "He knows you. He knows you are his father." Garrett held his son, this baby boy named for the son he had lost, this new life that had come from so much pain, this second chance he never thought he deserved. "I am your papa," he told Daniel, "and I will always keep you safe. You and Grace and your mama. All of you, always." They ate dinner together. The food was terrible. Garrett ate it anyway and told Beth it was delicious. Beth threw a roll at his head. Grace laughed so hard she snorted. Daniel banged his spoon on the table and shouted "Papa" over and over because He liked the way the words sounded. After dinner, after Grace went to bed and the baby fell asleep in his cradle, Garrett and Beth sat by the fire. Edmund's trial is next month, Beth said, in Philadelphia, federal court. Are you worried? No, Marcus already testified. Dr. Morrison sent his report. Judge Beckett sent his findings. Edmund is going to prison, 25 years minimum. Good. 3 more women came forward. Women he hurt before me. The prosecutors say it is building into something bigger, that Edmund will never see freedom again. Garrett pulled her close. Then it really is over. It really is. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Outside an owl called. The ranch settled around them like a blanket. Thank you, Beth said. For what? For opening your door, for taking us in, for fighting for us, for loving us. Thank you for pounding on it, for being brave enough to run, for bringing Grace into my life, for giving me a reason to live again. We saved each other. Yes, we did. Beth looked at the hearth, at the fire that had been burning for 7 years now. Why do you still keep it going, the fire? You are not afraid of the dark anymore. No, but someone out there might be. Someone might see this light and know there is a place to go, a door that is open, a person who will help. You cannot save everyone, Garrett. No, but I can save the ones who make it to my door. Beth smiled. She rested her head on his shoulder. You are a good man, Garrett Stone. I hope you finally believe that. I am getting there. That is all anyone can do. Keep trying. Keep getting there. They sat by the fire until the night grew late, until the stars came out and the moon rose and the whole world went quiet. Then they banked the coals and went to bed, together, as a family, as people who had found each other in the darkest moment and had chosen to build something beautiful from the wreckage. Outside, the door stayed open. Just a crack. Just enough for the light to spill out into the darkness. Just enough for someone who needed it to see. Because Garrett Stone had learned something in the 7 years since his first family died. He had learned that grief does not end, that loss does not heal completely, that some wounds stay with you forever. But he had also learned that loss does not mean the end of love, that grief can coexist with joy, that a heart broken by tragedy can still open for new people, new family, new life. He had learned that second chances exist, that redemption is real, that broken people deserve to be loved. And most importantly, he had learned that keeping the fire burning is not about fighting the darkness. It is about lighting the way home for people who are lost, for women running from monsters, for children who need protection, for anyone who sees the light and knows they have found sanctuary. The fire burned on, and in the morning when the sun rose over Stone Creek Ranch, it would find a family, whole, safe, healed, not perfect, never perfect, but together. And that was enough. That was everything.